Today, I guess I'll terraform my world a little bit. The reason is I need a bigger space. Look, all my builds are mid and I want to build something massive. I don't know, maybe a really good house. I also have some future plans for this world. So I'm going to terraform all this land and future me will decide what I'm going to build. And the main thing, whenever I scroll through Reddit, I find some crazy stories. So while I terraform my world, I'm going to read some of those stories. You grab your snacks and enjoy. This story comes from a 32-year-old guy who worked at a mid-sized marketing firm for about 6 years. He was good at his job, well-liked by clients, and had been promised a senior position multiple times. His manager, let's call him Derek, kept dangling that promotion in front of him like a carrot on a stick. Every review cycle, Derek would say the same thing. Next quarter, I promise, we just need to see a bit more consistency. But next quarter would come and go and nothing would change. Meanwhile, Derek was taking credit for his ideas in meetings, presenting his campaign concepts as his own, and basically using him as a stepping stone. The final straw came when the senior position finally opened up. He had worked 70-hour weeks for 3 months straight on a massive campaign that brought in their biggest client of the year. Everyone knew he deserved it. But when the announcement came, Derek gave the promotion to his own nephew, a 24-year-old kid fresh out of college who had been with the company for less than 6 months. He was furious, but instead of quitting or confronting Derek directly, he decided to play the long game. He spent the next 2 months meticulously documenting every single instance of Derek's misconduct. Emails where Derek took credit for his work, screenshots of messages where Derek told him to fudge numbers on reports, records of Derek approving personal expenses on the company card, even evidence that Derek had been having an affair with someone from HR, which was explicitly against company policy. He compiled everything into a detailed report, organized it beautifully, and sent it directly to the CEO and the board of directors. Not just Derek's boss, the very top of the company. He didn't go through proper channels. He didn't give Derek a warning. He went nuclear. Within a week, Derek was fired. The nephew lost his promotion. The HR person Derek was seeing also got terminated. It felt amazing at first, justice served, right? But then things started to spiral. Derek had a wife and 2 young kids. Losing his job meant losing his health insurance, and apparently his youngest daughter had some ongoing medical issues that required expensive treatment. Derek's wife started a GoFundMe, and the whole story went semi-viral in their industry circles. People started painting Derek as a victim of corporate cruelty, a family man destroyed by a vindictive employee. Then he found out Derek was struggling to find new work because the circumstances of his firing had spread through their professional network. No one wanted to hire someone terminated for ethics violations and affair with a subordinate. Derek's marriage fell apart 6 months later. The guy saw Derek's wife posting on social media about having to move in with her parents because they lost their house. And here's where it gets worse. Derek started experiencing severe depression and anxiety. Mutual colleagues told him that Derek had been hospitalized briefly after what his wife described as a mental health crisis. He started feeling this creeping guilt. Yeah, Derek was a terrible boss who stole credit and played favorites. But did he deserve to have his entire life dismantled? His kids didn't do anything wrong, but they suffered the most. His wife was innocent. The revenge that felt so righteous in the moment had collateral damage he never considered. Now, 2 years later, he still works at the same company. He eventually got promoted, but it feels hollow. He can't enjoy it because every time he thinks about his success, he thinks about Derek's kids losing their home. Some people tell him Derek brought it on himself and he just exposed the truth. Others say he went too far and should have just found a new job. He doesn't know anymore. The revenge felt good for about 2 weeks and he's been living with the weight of it ever since. Well, I think this is one of those stories where nobody really wins. Derek was definitely a terrible boss and he got what he deserved. But the fallout didn't just hit him, it hit his family too. And that's the part that makes it feel heavy, because the truth was exposed, but the damage went way beyond the person who caused it. Alright, next story. This one comes from a 28-year-old woman who discovered her girlfriend of 4 years was cheating on her. They'd been living together for 2 years, shared a dog, had joint finances, the whole 9 yards. She thought they were endgame. The discovery happened in the most cliche way possible. Her girlfriend left her laptop open and a message notification popped up that was very clearly romantic. She didn't want to snoop, but something in her gut said she needed to look. What she found was months of messages with someone from her girlfriend's gym. Flirting, explicit photos, plans to meet up. The messages made it clear they'd been physical multiple times. She was devastated, but instead of confronting her girlfriend immediately, she took a few days to think about how she wanted to handle it. And in those few days, the hurt transformed into something colder. She wanted her girlfriend to feel the same humiliation she felt. Her girlfriend was a freelance photographer trying to build her brand. She'd spent years cultivating an online presence, had about 40,000 followers on Instagram, and was finally starting to book higher paying clients. Her whole professional identity was tied to this image she projected online. Authentic, kind, relationship focused. She'd posted countless photos of them together with captions about love and loyalty. So she decided to expose her. She took screenshots of everything. The messages, the photos, all of it. And then she made a burner account and created a detailed post exposing the affair, complete with receipts. She tagged her girlfriend's main account and posted it publicly. The post went viral in their local community within hours. Her girlfriend's followers started dropping rapidly. Clients canceled bookings. Her girlfriend's family, who didn't even know she was gay, saw everything because relatives started sending her the post asking if it was real. Her girlfriend came home that evening in complete hysterics. She'd lost thousands of followers, had dozens of angry messages, and her phone wouldn't stop ringing with family members demanding explanations. She was panicking about her career being destroyed. And in that moment, seeing her girlfriend's life imploding in real time, she felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just emptiness and a creeping sense that she'd made a terrible mistake. Over the next few weeks, things got darker. Her girlfriend fell into a severe depression. She stopped eating, stopped working, barely left the bedroom. The public humiliation had triggered something deeper, and she started talking about not wanting to be alive anymore. That's when she realized the revenge had gone way too far. She convinced her girlfriend to see a therapist, even though they were barely speaking. She helped her girlfriend move out because staying in the same space was toxic for both of them. And she had to live with the knowledge that her moment of vindictive rage had pushed someone she once loved to the edge. The worst part? After everything calmed down and months had passed, she found out through mutual friends that her girlfriend's affair had already been ending. The person she was seeing had started pulling away, and her girlfriend had been planning to confess and try to work things out. Not that it excuses the cheating, but it meant the relationship might have been salvageable if she'd just confronted her directly instead of going public. Now, a year later, her ex-girlfriend has rebuilt somewhat. She changed her online presence completely, started over with a new brand, and is apparently doing better mentally. They haven't spoken since the breakup. She thinks about it constantly. The cheating hurt her deeply, and she had every right to be angry. But destroying someone's entire livelihood and mental health in response? She's not sure she can forgive herself for that. Some friends say her girlfriend deserved it for being a cheater. Others have distanced themselves from her because they think what she did was cruel. She still doesn't know if she went too far or if this is just what consequences look like, but she knows she'd do it differently if she could go back. Well, yeah, getting cheated on is brutal, and her anger made total sense. But putting someone on blast in front of the entire internet is a different level of damage. It didn't just end the relationship, it wrecked a person's whole life. This feels like one of those moments where the pain was real, but the way it was handled created way more pain than it fixed. Alright, next story. This story is from a 40-year-old man who had an ongoing dispute with his neighbor that ended in a way nobody could have predicted. It started small. His neighbor, an older guy in his mid-60s, was very particular about property lines and neighborhood aesthetics. The kind of person who'd measure if your trash cans were too close to his driveway, or complain if your grass was half an inch too long. At first, he tried to be accommodating. He'd move his car if the neighbor asked, kept his yard tidy, didn't make noise late at night, but the neighbor's complaints became increasingly petty and aggressive. He'd leave notes on his car about parking. He'd report him to the HOA for minor violations that weren't even violations. He'd stand at the property line and literally measure with a tape measure if branches from his tree crossed over. The breaking point came when his 8-year-old daughter started having nightmares. The neighbor had apparently yelled at her for riding her bike too. Close to his lawn, called her a destructive brat, and told her he'd call the police if she did it again. His daughter was terrified and refused to play outside anymore. That's when he decided enough was enough. But instead of handling it like an adult, talking to the neighbor, or even getting the HOA involved properly, he decided to make the neighbor's life miserable. He started with small annoyances. He'd park his car at the very edge of legality, technically on his property, but positioned to be maximally inconvenient. He'd mow his lawn early on Saturday mornings, right at 7 when it was technically allowed, but still annoying. He let his dog bark a bit longer before bringing him inside. But then he escalated. He researched local ordinances obsessively and found out his neighbor's fence was actually 3 inches over the property line on one side. Technically illegal, so he filed a formal complaint with the city and demanded the neighbor either move the fence or face fines. The fence had been there for 15 years. Moving it would cost thousands of dollars. The neighbor tried to argue, showed documentation that the previous owner had approved it, but legally, it didn't matter. He pushed the issue hard, showed up to every city meeting, and made it his personal mission to force compliance. The neighbor, who was on a fixed retirement income, couldn't afford to move the fence. He tried to negotiate, offered to pay for a survey to split the cost, even apologized for yelling at his daughter, but he wouldn't back down. He wanted the neighbor to suffer the way his family had suffered. The city eventually sided with him. The neighbor had 90 days to move the fence or face escalating fines. At first, he felt victorious, but then he noticed the neighbor's wife wasn't around anymore. He saw the neighbor looking exhausted, like he'd aged 5 years in 2 months. Then one morning, an ambulance showed up at the neighbor's house. He watched from his window as paramedics brought the neighbor out on a stretcher. He found out later from another neighbor that the guy had had a heart attack. The stress of the fence situation, combined with Arnjad's financial problems and his wife having left him, had apparently pushed him over the edge. The neighbor survived, but he had to sell his house and move in with his daughter in another state. He couldn't afford the medical bills plus the cost of moving the fence. The house sold quickly to a nice young family, and suddenly he had friendly neighbors who smiled and waved. But the guilt was crushing. He'd wanted to inconvenience the neighbor, maybe teach him a lesson about being a decent person. He didn't want to destroy the man's health and financial stability. His wife barely spoke to him for weeks, said she was ashamed of how far he'd taken it. Even his daughter, the one who'd been scared of the neighbor, asked why the mean man had to go to the hospital. He tried to reach out to apologize, sent a message through the neighbor's daughter, but never got a response. He doesn't blame them. Looking back, he realizes the neighbor was probably just a lonely, grumpy old man who was too rigid and set in his ways. Was he a jerk? Absolutely. Did he deserve to have his life upended? Probably not. He got his revenge, his property line was respected, and he has nice neighbors now. But every time he sees that fence line, he thinks about the ambulance and wonders if winning was worth it. Well, yeah, the neighbor was way out of line. Yelling at a kid is unforgivable. But this just shows how revenge can spiral way past what you ever meant to do. He didn't just fix a fence, he broke a person. And when you look back at it, that kind of winning doesn't really feel like winning at all. Alright, next story. This story comes from a 29-year-old woman who sabotaged her best friend's wedding, and the fallout was worse than anything she could have imagined. She and her best friend, let's call her Maya, had been inseparable since college. They did everything together, supported each other through breakups, celebrated each other's wins, and always said they'd be each other's maid of honor someday. Then Maya started dating this guy, Alex. From the beginning, she had a bad feeling about him. He was charming, sure, but something felt off. He'd make subtle comments that put Maya down, disguised as jokes. He controlled little things like what she wore or who she hung out with, but he did it so smoothly that Maya didn't seem to notice. She tried to bring it up a few times, gently suggesting that some of Alex's behavior seemed controlling, but Maya was head over heels. She'd brush it off, say she was overreacting, insist that Alex was just protective because he loved her so much. When Alex proposed after a year of dating, she was genuinely worried. She'd seen enough red flags to fill a stadium, but Maya was glowing with happiness. She was named maid of honor, just like they'd always planned, but the whole engagement period felt wrong. Then, about 2 months before the wedding, she accidentally overheard Alex on the phone. She'd stopped by Maya's apartment to drop off some bridesmaid stuff, and Alex was in the bedroom talking. The door was cracked, and she heard him say something that made her blood run cold. He was talking to someone about Maya's inheritance. Maya's grandmother had recently passed and left her a substantial amount of money, around $300,000. Alex was literally strategizing about how to get Maya to put the money in a joint account after the wedding, talking about it like a business transaction. He even laughed and said something like, "She's so in love she'd do anything I ask." She was horrified. This wasn't just controlling behavior anymore. This guy was potentially trying to financially manipulate her best friend. She immediately told Maya what she'd heard. Maya didn't believe her. She said she must have misheard, that Alex would never do something like that she was jealous because she was single and couldn't stand to see her happy. The accusation stunk, but what hurt more was that Maya chose to believe Alex over her when confronted. Alex, of course, denied everything, said he was talking about his own finances, and painted her as a jealous friend trying to ruin their relationship. Maya uninvited her from the wedding. 10 years of friendship ended over a phone call. She was devastated, but also convinced she was right about Alex. So she made a decision that she regrets to this day. She decided to stop the wedding, not by talking to Maya again or presenting evidence, but by sabotaging it directly. She knew Maya's wedding planner's email password because they'd shared it for coordination purposes when she was still the maid of honor, so she went into the account and systematically canceled everything. The venue canceled with a fake email from Maya saying they were postponing. The caterer canceled. The photographer canceled. The florist canceled. She even canceled the string quartet. She did it 2 days before the wedding, too late for Maya to fix most of it, but early enough that she'd find out before the actual day. When Maya discovered what happened, chaos erupted. She was making frantic calls, crying, trying to rebook everything. Some vendors had already filled the slots. The venue said they couldn't accommodate them anymore. The wedding had to be postponed by 3 months, and even then, it was a scramble to put together something much smaller and simpler than what Maya had planned. Maya knew immediately it was her. The wedding planner confirmed the emails came from the shared access, and she was the only other person with the password. Maya threatened legal action, said she'd sue for damages. Her family sent her messages calling her psychotic, evil, jealous. And here's the worst part. The wedding still happened. 3 months later, Maya and Alex got married. And now, a year later, they seem fine, maybe even happy. Alex hasn't shown any of the financial manipulation she was so sure would happen. Maya posted pictures from their honeymoon, smiling and glowing. They bought a house together. She destroyed a decade-long friendship, caused Maya immense stress and embarrassment, cost her thousands of dollars in rebooking fees and lost deposits. And for what? Maybe she was wrong about Alex. Maybe that phone conversation wasn't what she thought. Or maybe Alex is just playing a longer game, but that doesn't justify what she did. Maya's family and mutual friends have completely cut her off. She's been branded as the crazy, jealous friend who tried to ruin a wedding. Her reputation in their social circle is destroyed. She's lost friendships beyond just Maya. And the guilt eats at her every single day. She wanted to protect her best friend from what she genuinely believed was a manipulative relationship. But the way she went about it was so extreme, so vindictive, that even if she was right about Alex, she'd still be wrong about what she did. She's tried to apologize, sent multiple messages to Maya explaining that she thought she was helping, that she was terrified Maya was making a mistake. Maya has never responded. And honestly, she doesn't blame her. Sometimes she wonders if she really did it to protect Maya, or if some part of her was jealous that Maya was getting married while she was still single. She hates that she even has to question her own motives. But the truth is, whatever her reasons were, the revenge or sabotage or whatever you want to call it went way too far. She lost her best friend, destroyed years of trust, and caused pain that can never be undone. And the worst part, she'd do it again if she truly believed Maya was in danger. But she's no longer sure she can trust her own judgment about what constitutes danger. While I get why she was scared, hearing someone talk about your best friend like a bank account would freak anyone out. But hacking into the wedding and blowing everything up wasn't protecting Maya. It was crossing a line that you can't uncross. Even if Alex really is bad news, what she did destroyed the only chance she had to actually help. Alright, next story. This story comes from a 34-year-old man who had a startup idea stolen by his business partner, and his revenge ended up destroying both their lives. He'd been working in tech for about 10 years when he came up with an idea for an app. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was clever and filled a specific gap in the market. He spent months developing the concept, doing market research, building a prototype. He was meticulous about it. He brought in a friend from college, someone he'd known for 15 years, to be his co-founder. Let's call him Ryan. Ryan was a developer, he was the business and marketing guy, and they seemed like a perfect team. They registered the business together, split equity 50-50, and started working on launching. Everything was going well until about 6 months in. He started noticing that Ryan was being secretive about certain aspects of the code. He'd close his laptop when he walked by, take calls privately, deflect questions about timeline. He brushed it off at first, thought maybe Ryan was just stressed about deadlines. Then one day, he found out Ryan had filed a separate patent for a new app idea that was essentially their entire concept with minor tweaks. Ryan had done it under his own name, through a separate business entity and had already started pitching to investors without him. He was blindsided. His best friend, his business partner, had literally stolen their entire project and was trying to cut him out. When he confronted Ryan, the guy didn't even deny it. He said he'd done most of the actual development work and deserved more equity. And since he wouldn't agree to renegotiate, he was taking the idea and running with it himself. He consulted a lawyer, but the reality was messy. They'd been sloppy with their initial paperwork, didn't have clear operating agreements, and Ryan's patent application was just different enough that fighting it would be expensive and uncertain. The lawyer estimated it would cost upwards of $100,000 in legal fees with no guarantee of winning. So instead of going legal, he decided to destroy Ryan's credibility in the industry. He launched a scorched earth campaign. He reached out to every investor Ryan was pitching to and told them the whole story, provided evidence of their original partnership, showed early documentation with both their names on it. He posted on industry forums about what Ryan had done, naming him directly. But he didn't stop there. He dug into Ryan's past and found out Ryan had embellished parts of his resume. A degree Ryan claimed to have finished, he'd actually dropped out a semester before graduating. A project Ryan took credit for at a previous company had mostly been done by someone else. None of it was illegal, but it was dishonest. He compiled all of this into a detailed blog post titled something like "How My Business Partner Stole My Startup and Lied About Everything." He made sure it was SEO optimized so anyone Googling Ryan's name would find it. He sent it to tech journalists, posted it on Reddit and Hacker News, shared it in every professional group he was part of. The post went viral in their niche industry. Ryan's reputation was annihilated overnight. Investors pulled out. His patent application stalled because of the controversy. He started getting messages from former colleagues who felt deceived about his credentials. He felt victorious. Justice served, right? Ryan had stolen from him, and now Ryan was facing consequences. But then Ryan's life started falling apart in ways he hadn't anticipated. Ryan lost his job at the company he'd been working at part-time for stability. His girlfriend left him, apparently unable to handle the stress and public humiliation. Ryan's family, who had invested their own money into his startup dreams, lost their savings. About 6 months after the blog post, he got a message from Ryan's sister begging him to take the post down. She said Ryan was severely depressed, wasn't leaving his apartment, and had been talking about suicide. She said their parents were terrified and didn't know how to help him. He didn't take the post down immediately. Part of him thought Ryan deserved to suffer. But then he started hearing through mutual connections that Ryan really was in a bad place. Not just depressed, but financially ruined and completely isolated. Eventually, he took the post down. Not because he forgave Ryan, but because he couldn't live with the possibility that Ryan might actually hurt himself and he'd played a role in pushing him there. But the damage was done. The post had been screenshot and shared hundreds of times. It was archived on multiple sites. You can't really delete something once it's been on the internet. Here's the thing though. The revenge didn't even help him. He was so focused on destroying Ryan that he never actually launched his own version of the app. By the time the dust settled, someone else had created something similar and captured the market. His idea, the thing he'd worked so hard on, became irrelevant. So now, 2 years later, both of them lost. Ryan's reputation is destroyed, he's struggling with mental health issues, and he's working a basic tech support job just to pay bills. And he's still stuck in the same position he was before, except now he's known in the industry as the guy who publicly destroyed his former partner. Some people tell him Ryan got what he deserved for stealing. Others say he went too far, that he could have taken the high road and still succeeded. He honestly doesn't know anymore. What he does know is that the satisfaction he felt watching Ryan's life implode lasted maybe a week. The guilt and emptiness that came after has lasted years. He destroyed someone he once considered a close friend, and in the process, he destroyed his own opportunity to succeed. The revenge felt righteous in the moment. Looking back, it just feels like two people ruining each other's lives over something that probably could have been resolved differently, and that's something he has to carry with him forever. Well, yeah, Ryan absolutely betrayed him. Stealing someone's idea is brutal, but turning it into a public execution didn't bring anything back. It just made two people lose instead of one. The craziest part is the app was the real victim here. It never even got a chance to live. Alright, next story. This final story is from a 26-year-old guy looking back on something that happened when he was 17, and how a revenge prank spiraled into something that still affects his life today. When he was in high school, there was this kid, Let's call him Brandon, who relentlessly bullied him. We're talking daily harassment, mocking him in the hallways, spreading rumors, once even tripping him down a flight of stairs and laughing about it. The school administration did basically nothing, despite multiple reports from him and his parents. Senior year, he'd had enough. He and a couple of friends decided they were going to get back at Brandon in a way he'd never forget. They planned an elaborate prank that they thought was brilliant at the time. Brandon was obsessed with this girl in their class and had finally convinced her to go on a date with him. He and his friends decided to ruin it. They created a fake social media profile pretending to be a college girl who was interested in Brandon. They spent weeks building this fake persona, messaging Brandon, flirting with him, building his trust. The fake girl convinced Brandon to ditch his actual date and meet her instead at a specific location. They told him to bring flowers, dress nice, the whole thing, and when Brandon showed up to this location, which was a parking lot behind a closed restaurant, they were waiting with cameras. They filmed his reaction when he realized he'd been catfished, mocked him, posted the video on social media with captions about how he was a loser who got what he deserved for being a bully. The video showed Brandon's face clearly, showed him getting emotional and angry, showed the humiliation. The video went viral at their school. Everyone saw it. Brandon became a laughingstock, and for about 2 days, he felt amazing. The bully had been bullied back, poetic justice. But then things escalated. Brandon stopped coming to school, his parents pulled him out and enrolled him in online classes. For the rest of the year, rumors started spreading that Brandon had tried to hurt himself. The school launched an investigation into who made the video. They were caught pretty quickly. Security footage from a nearby business showed their cars in the parking lot. Someone who'd seen them filming came forward. The school suspended all 3 of them for the remainder of the year, which meant they had to finish their classes online and couldn't attend graduation. But that wasn't the worst part. Brandon's parents filed charges, not just against him, but against his 2 friends as well. They were charged with harassment, cyberbullying, and because they'd filmed and distributed it, some kind of voyeurism or privacy violation law that applied to minors. The legal terminology was complicated, but the bottom line was they were facing potential criminal records. His parents had to hire a lawyer, which cost them tens of thousands of dollars they didn't have. He ended up taking a plea deal that involved community service, probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent mark on his record. His 2 friends got similar deals. The criminal record affected his college applications. Several schools rescinded acceptance offers when they found out about the charges. He ended up going to a community college instead of the university he'd been planning on. His parents were devastated, not just financially, but emotionally. His mom cried for weeks, but the worst part was finding out what happened to Brandon. He didn't attempt suicide, like the rumors said, but he did develop severe social anxiety and depression from the incident. The humiliation of that video, which had been shared thousands of times and could never fully be deleted from the internet, haunted him. Brandon's parents ended up moving to a different state so he could start over at a new school where people didn't know about the video. Years later, when he was 23, he actually ran into Brandon at a coffee shop in a completely different city. They both froze when they saw each other. After an awkward moment, Brandon actually approached him. They ended up talking for about an hour. Brandon told him that those years after the video were the darkest of his life. He'd struggled with trusting people, had panic attacks about his image being online, and had spent years in therapy working through it. But Brandon also said something that stuck with him. He said, "I was a terrible person to you in high school. I made your life hell, and I'm sorry for that. But what you did in return didn't make us even. It just meant we both got hurt." Brandon had moved on, was working a decent job, had gone to therapy, and was trying to build a normal life, but he admitted that he still had nightmares about that parking lot sometimes, about the feeling of being humiliated and filmed and mocked. And hearing that, years later, hit him differently than it would have at 17. At 17, he thought he was the hero, getting justice. At 23, sitting across from someone whose life he'd helped derail, he just felt sick. He apologized, genuinely, not just because he felt obligated to, but because he meant it. Brandon accepted the apology, said he'd forgiven him years ago in therapy because holding onto anger was exhausting. They didn't become friends or anything, but they parted on civil terms. Now, at 26, he still lives with the consequences. The criminal record has been sealed, but it affected which jobs he could get early in his career. He lost friendships over the incident. His relationship with his parents was strained for years because of the financial and emotional stress he caused them, and he carries the guilt of knowing that his revenge, which felt so justified at the time, caused lasting psychological harm to someone. Yes, Brandon was a bully. Yes, Brandon made his teenage years miserable. but his response was disproportionate and cruel in its own way. Two wrongs didn't make a right. They just made two people's lives worse. He thinks about it whenever he sees stories online about revenge or cancel culture or public shaming. It's easy to feel righteous when you're hurting someone who hurt you. It's easy to justify it by saying they deserved it. But the aftermath, the real human cost, is something you have to live with long after the satisfaction fades. If he could go back, he'd handle it differently. He'd focus on protecting himself, on getting through high school, on building a life where Brandon's opinion didn't matter, but he can't go back. All he can do is live with what he did and try to be better. And that's something he'll be working on for the rest of his life. Alright, after that, I kept shoveling until all of my shovels broke. Then, I farmed wheat a little bit and sorted out my farming chest, dirt, and stone chests. Then I placed some torches so mobs wouldn't spawn, and that's all. And those were 6 stories of revenge that went way too far. Some of these people were justified in being angry, justified in wanting payback. But the execution, the extremity of what they did, ended up causing more harm than anyone intended. It's a reminder that revenge rarely brings the satisfaction we think it will, and the consequences can haunt us long after the moment passes. What do you think? Were any of these people justified, or did they all cross a line? Let me know in the comments. And if you have your own revenge story, whether you regret it or not, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.